All right. Caro, Orisha, everyone. Thank you for joining into our class this morning. So we're going to switch things up a little bit, but still keep it consistent. We appreciate our guest who was able to fill us in. We initially had one more course that was going to cover his ritual aspect of Yamu, but we will continue that at a later date, and we'll progressively move forward through some of the, through the information here. So, as I initially stated and planned, is that the courses that we went through were like the practical things, how to deal with the beginners or a novice orientation to how to deal with your to propitiate your icon, different stages, different steps. I'll do a video as well to put everything back together, so that we have a clear, concise way of how to invoke, and after you do your invocations, what do you do afterwards? um and hopefully that will be of value to you all. The website is finally done. I have a whole lot of journals on there, things that you can read to kind of stay in the know, as we're going through these journeys. But of course, as I stated before, for you all, supporting us, this cohort, all of your classes information will be for free. And we'll continue to learn more about the philosophy and the essence of Obatala and the Orisa Funfun. And all of the information that I have are based off of firsthand sources. So more so, this will be the invocation liturgy. This will be the stories, the poems. This will be the translation of the names, and then also their expression throughout Africa, as well. So the practice sides, I'm so on pretty good about, but the theory, the history, the philosophy is my strong point. And so we'll go over that. So this course is going to be a good introduction to it. And then the first class that we'll go really in depth on is Aledamare, as sometimes called Olodumare or Edumare. And the reason why we'll go through Aledamare first before we go to Obatala, because the way to understand your, how can you understand a child if you don't know the parent, right? If you want to know the person, then you should know the elder. If you want to know your the student, then who was the teacher? If you wanted to know the thing that's in front of you, well, what is the source? And by addressing that, it will remove a lot of um, I don't know, cultural misappropriations, misunderstandings about Obatala, who he is, what his function is, and actually what Aledamare's function is as well. So not only is this for, Orisa Funfun, but then again, a general course for all devotees who's either looking for their way, looking for their tutelary deity, or also looking for their African clan, so to speak. So that's a little bit of background. So of course, as you hear, thank you, Iya, for giving the compliment. Yes, this image here is supposed to be a representation of Yamu. Of course, Yamu and Obatala. Obatala is not, some people would say Obatala is androgynous or Obatala is a he, she. That's not true. Um, each deity is a polarity, and they have their own. They have their own balance. So like, Shango and Oya, they're balanced and they share the same type of energy. So this is the same thing with Obatala and Yamu. Okay, someone, are you all able to see my screen? You can just put it in the chat, or just say something if you can't see it.
Hey, Cairo, I can't see it. It's just blank.
Okay, all right. And someone's saying yes, they can. Hold on, let me try something 1 second. Let me back out. Okay. Okay. How about now? Open for me. Can you see the screen?
No.
Huh. Okay, hold on. There's something going on with your access. Hold on 1 second. Hmm.
Should I try to log out and log back in?
Yeah, because I believe so. Please do.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and wait for you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
I can see it now.
Okay. Good,
Okay.
good. All right. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started and get into the information here. And the intent is that you all will have a very thorough, and complete understanding not only of Obatala, Yamu, but then some of the major Orisha as well. So we have an understanding on how they show up. And then if you all get to the point of like, divining, you're able to assess the situation and see, what spirit can assist a person on their journey, so to speak. So again, this is this is me in 2019 finishing my Idoshu, and this here is the Orisha of Yamu, and this staff is the Yamu staff that this Iya is holding here. So when we're thinking about the word, I believe religion and spirituality, in essence, they're the same thing. I've gone over this thoroughly, and I think I will do this in the future. One of my courses here is that the term religion and spirituality are all founded from, or etymology, the etymology of the word is founded in the language of Kemet and Knesset as Rekit and Esperit. Rekit turned into religion and Esperit turned into spirit or spirituality. And both of these terms convey the process of using the breath, the words to invoke and possess a deity. So sometimes when we'll hear the word, religion and spirituality, some people would say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, or spirituality is a higher level of religion. It's all the same thing. In a lot of things, we argue unnecessarily with the language of of our colonizers, so to speak, not knowing where these terms actually came from. So the orientation that we're doing here is from, of course, the Obatala perspective or religion, which is the Yasin Obatala Ibile. And um, a note is that, as we know, Obatala's original name was Orishanla. And I'll say this before I give my disclaimer. But with Orishanla, it means Nla means the big, the senior, the most principal, the higher one, so forth. So when we're saying Orishanla, we're saying the most principal, the highest ranking, not necessarily the eldest, right? Sometimes it took me a minute to really understand that through the language, because there are older deities than Obatala, but Obatala is the senior amongst all of the other deities, and we'll go in depth to why that is. So all of the Orisha were named after Obatala's original name, which is Orishala. So sometimes when people will call the practice, Ifa, or they'll say it's Ifa or Orisha, technically the term is called Orisha, and the name of the religion is actually named after Obatala. And as you go through the not only the essay Eridelegun, but if you go through the Ifa essay as well, at least 50 to 60% of the essays that you will go through will mention Obatala in one way or another. And there's a reason behind that. We know that Obatala brought divination into the world. He brought Eridelegun into the world. Initially, divination started with the kola nut, where Orunmila and Oshun, who we know as Orunmila is the patron deity of the Ifa divination practice. We know Oshun is now was sanctioned as the patron of the Eridelegun practice, but they learned from Obatala. Well, Oshun learned from Obatala, and they were sanctioned with his ashe before they started. And this is a story that's captured in the essay Ofun in the 16 Kairin. So when we're speaking about the religion overall, some of you all know, the source and where it came from, and we'll just do a brief, recap of it, so to speak. So we know today what is considered as Nigeria, Benin, some parts of Togo, now wasn't necessarily the same due to the Berlin Conference, and they made artificial lines in the sand, so to speak. But the culture of the Yoruba, which is our ethnic group, and majority of the people's ethnic groups are on there today, is that they take place, or they're originally located in that area. Not only Nigeria, Togo, Benin, Sierra Leone, some parts of Ghana, and some parts of, I believe I said Cote d'Ivoire. So due to well, first let's say that the Yoruba are one of the most populous African ethnic groups. Now they say the Hausa is number one. I don't necessarily, I'm not sure about that. But if Hausa is number one, yes, and then the Yoruba is number two. And for all of you all who had been to Nigeria before, you had experienced this, to where there's such a concentration of a whole lot of African people in a small section there in Nigeria. So due to the outcomes of the transatlantic slave trade, that the Yoruba were dispersed en masse as prisoners of war throughout the world. So the Yoruba descendants are found in the United States, South America, and various Caribbean islands. Some people would state that Oyotunji in South Carolina was the first Yoruba kingdom, which could be true. But we want to be clear that the Yoruba, our culture didn't come here with Oyotunji, or didn't come here with the recent priestesses and priests who traveled back to Africa and came back. Is that when they started kidnapping African women and men and children, is that they didn't capture the feeble-minded, right? They captured skilled men and women in various different crafts. So from architecture, from I'm sorry, from architects to blacksmiths to farmers to priests to medicine men to conjurmen. We all came over here, and it wasn't like we didn't know what we were doing. So considering that, is that a lot of people kept their culture here in North America, and you can see this in the slave narratives. You can see this in some of the ritual practice, some of the art. A lot of it is hidden, not so much as it is in Brazil, but a lot of it was hidden and covered up here in America, to where they were adamant about destroying it. But we had kept our culture here, the same with the Ewe, the Fon, the Akan, so forth. So when we use the term Obatala Ibile, well, Esino Obatala Ibile, it's the traditional service, or the expression, ancient expression of the traditional service to Obatala. So of course we know that there are 400 plus one Orisha in the cosmos, and the 400 plus one does not necessarily mean that there's 401. So the 400 plus one theory states that before the world came into existence, is that there were 400 entities that had existed. So that +1 means it's like a theory of elasticity. So that +1 is stating that there's always space for new entities to come into existence. And just as there's 200 +1 supernatural malevolent entities that are existing and will come into creation. And this is like, for an example, um, I don't know, like a cancer, quote unquote COVID, or the, you know, the atom bomb or whatever, is that these were new things of just sheer malevolence, irrevocable malevolence that was created after the original occurrence. And so there will always be things coming into existence, and there will always be a struggle between malevolence and benevolence, positive, negative, evil, and righteousness, so to speak. There's always going to be this battle. So even if we, hope to eradicate malevolence and evil, is that, we know that every day is a struggle, every day is going to be something new. And that actually reinforces the theory of how often one should be praying or staying in ritual service, because we know, we can pray today for a good day, but we know tomorrow is going to be something new. And just, let that, consider that in your, and things that you expect. So, we know that it's going to, it's going to rain, it's going to shine, but, we'll be very, we would be remiss to think that everything is all good and everything will always be positive, and that is not necessarily true. So when we're thinking about a deity or an Orisha, and it's important to say, because at times we would see that there are some Orishas over time that has been transformed into, to hybridized deities. For an example, I've seen people who would paint Shango, as this white man that looks like maybe like Thor or something like that. We would see in the past when Kemet started its fall past the 25th dynasty, they would create this deity called Serapis, and Serapis was a hybridization of a pre-existing deity with one Roman or white ancestor, who was actually the basis on how they started building the morphology of Jesus, and so forth, or on how people would, use this term God and start creating different things and making it force fit these foreign concepts into like a nature or base or African religion. So when we're talking about a deity, it's a supernatural entity that possesses a specific natural phenomenon. So each deity has something that they oversee. They have their specific vibration or their specific function. And we're not calling it like, like the Greek and Roman God, like, oh, this is the God of war, and this is the God of fire, and this is the God of love. Not necessarily like that. Some things do fall in line, but it's like a vibration of things that they cover. And if someone says, this is the Orisha of this, you may want to start to question the competency, because there's so much more that's hidden and so much more that is um mentioned about a particular deity. And for the most part, when we hear about Obatala, we would say, oh, Obatala is he's the spirit of peace, or he's the spirit of the white cloth, or something like that, and they completely miss um the essence of Obatala, who Obatala is, even though he wears white. Same thing, like for an example, with Olokun, they would say, "Oh, Olokun is just the spirit of the ocean, and that's it." It's like, no, it's so much more to her essence and to her practice and who she actually is. So as we know that these deities are a specific entity or a specific intelligence behind a natural phenomenon, know that our practice is a nature-based practice. So an African ethnic group is communicating and we're perpetrating, invoking a specific spirit force in nature and a specific spirit intelligence. And the ritual culture is that we're communicating with this universal force, but we're doing it in a very specific manner that's contingent upon geographic location. So other than localized ancestral spirits, these entities are spirits that manifest throughout the planet and throughout time. This culture, this culture's expression, as they're learning this deity, as this deity is communicating with them, possessing them, leading them to do certain type of things, leading them to establish their shrine houses and so forth, is that each cultural expression starts to become valid and efficacious as we're looking at how they got started from the beginning of time. each one is different. And there's some things that you could find in one area that you won't find in another. So, and I use this example all the time, and we'll go over this in the next class when we speak about Mare, is that, for an example, we know that Oya is a spirit, is that electric spirit of the magnetic sphere that's used to attack, engage, remove, destroy any type of malevolence away from, you know, the monarch, away from the king, away from the core of the person. So we know there's tornadoes, winds, and she's that electric energy that pushes things away, right? And we know that she has this maroon or this red light color. We know that she has a sister wife, and her sister wife is the North Pole, is the opposite pole, which is the North Pole, that wears white and that's married to the king as well. And she's used to fight, repel, and just destroy negativity for the home or for the hearth, right? So this very same entity we call Nekabet and Wachet in from the practice of our ancestors in Knesset and Kemet, pre-colonial Nubia, pre-colonial Sudan, or pre-colonial Egypt. So we know that the same deity as Wachet is that same deity that spirals. She's in a coil. She is used to operate. She's operationalized to attack, to repel, to spit fire, to blow anything away from the king, from the core. She's also married to a sister wife, Nekebet, who wears white, the other pole, who fights for behalf of the home and the hearth. The same thing with Abba and Ya, or Ayaba and Vodun and Hevesa, her wife, I'm sorry, her husband, so forth and so on. So when you go through all of the African cultures, they're saying the same exact thing, but they're looking at it from their own geographical specific and culturally specific relative manner. So if there's some type of inconsistency, then one should start to worry. It's like, okay, why is everyone saying the same thing? Why are we all seeing this same thing in nature, but for some reason one culture is just significantly different? Then we should start to have some type of, you know, some type of concern about it. So with Obatala spirituality and religion, and this is the same as every deity. It's not just Obatala. And I wanted to say this before, after I spoke about the practice of Orishala, right? Because he was the one with Yemu who was sanctioned to teach men and women and people how to live and how to establish civilization. But just like with Obatala, just with Shango, just with Oya, just with Yemoja, just as Olokun, just as Ashun, is that each religion or each deity is their own religious practice in their own right. So each deity is its own denomination. Each deity has its own complexity. Each deity has its own practice. Each deity has its own center of worship, its own method and theory for how they divine, their own method on how they initiate, their own method on how they do their worshiping, their own method in creating their own medicines, their own method on how they consecrate and create their icons, their own unique method to how they do rituals for marriage, birth, death. And each religion is a lifelong learning process. So we'll never come to that point to where we're 100% arrived, but we should be developing and growing each year as we move forward. So we're slowly, unpeeling the layer of the onion, and we're growing more so in the practice. So it is, I say this very respectfully, and it is controversial nonetheless, but it must be said. And again, I say this respectfully, is that each deity, specifically Obatala, is not under the governance or not under the authority of Ifa. And Ifa is not the name of the collective practice. And I say that because there are a lot of charlatans who is putting a stain on the collective culture by making certain type of assertions that, if you want to be successful in life, you have to initiate to Ifa. For you to initiate into Obatala, you need Babalaos there. For you to initiate into Ifa, you need to get an Ifa divination. And they are presenting the fact that Ifa priestess and priests have the authority to initiate any person into any cult, even though if they're not initiated into that cult. They're saying that any person can create, and I'm not saying receiving an icon. So yes, Babalawos and Iyanifas, they can get an icon that's had been already been made and presented to the person. But there's as with any Olorisha, but they're saying that, it's the priestess or priest of Ifa that can make any icon, like they're constructing and consecrating an icon, even if they do not belong to this icon. They're making this false assertion. For an example, someone can't give you what they don't have. And so this proclamation is really destroying the efforts of what our ancestors had made and is repelling children, the youth away from the practice, knowing that some people are saying some things just for money. Each culture has its own way of creating and doing things, and it's very disingenuous to promote that this culture oversees all. And I say this as a point of having respect for all different um cults, so to speak. It's not a monotheistic view. In the African culture, there is no such concept as a monotheistic God. That entity, or that, let's say, that interpretation of that entity is kind of a crude or a savage interpretation of the collective divinities that you would typically find in non-African um religion, so to speak. So it's like if you're looking at a corporation and you would say, oh hey, yeah, this guy here, this person here is responsible for the success of that whole corporation, not knowing that there's many different cells that keep up, or there's many different departments that maintain the effectiveness of the business. And not only do you see a person in the front, there's always somebody in the back. There's many different layers from that. And I think that you also see society being influenced by religious practice on how you have like one leader or one president, and that's solely based on monotheism. And just look at the way that how some cultures are and the way that they operate. So I remember when we used to do the All African Student Union at a college I worked at, and I wrote that in the articles of incorporation, is that we won't do the typical Western structure, how you have a president, vice president, and treasurer, and secretary. Is that I will have two of each position. So we'll have two presidents, two vice presidents, two secretaries, two treasurers, so that each person has a balance and a check, that no one person is just running the show. And that idea is based on monotheism. So I'm gonna take a pause real quick just to check the chat. And if you all have any questions, please feel free, raise your hand, it's all good. Or you can type it in the chat, or just interact as you feel more comfortable. So yes, please feel free to ask questions. So when we're thinking about the deities and the person, let's think about this as the simile of a human body. And so within a person, the man or a woman, is that each person is a cell, and the mandates of your cell, your morphology, your personality, temperament, and your function are designed pre-incarnation to serve a specific organ system, and you must adhere to those instructions to support that organ system that you were assigned to. So that organ system that you are assigned to is technically what we can say your deity. And so when that cell rebels, or that cell may be lost, or the cell doesn't want to serve on that organ, and we all know rebel cells cause cancers to occur. So when we're thinking about our value, our worth, and just what to become and who to become in our culture, is that we all were born under the governance of a specific parent cell or a parent organism. And what we do to support that organ system, it states how we are able to maintain homeostasis and balance within the body. So each deity is an organ system. We are a cell to that organ system, and this is how we become who we are. So even for all of those who are not, an Orisa Funfun person, I by no means is converting you or wishing you to do anything outside of what you are related to, because it doesn't work like that. You were born under a deity. You were born under the deities of your maternal and paternal clan, as them aiding a special type of energy and a special type of consciousness that makes you unique. And then you're born under the governance of a particular deity, and no one can change that for you. So, I'm not persuading anyone to become, a Obatala, but just to find out who you are, and then continue to show up 100% as that entity, and your success is behind it, and it's not just one thing. So the more that you form this relationship with your deity, you'll see how they show up in reality. So for an example, we can use Shango, on how Shango is the core of the heart, the core of the earth. We know that Shango loves the drum. The drum is stylized after the heart. The heart is a cardiovascular system. Shango dances, Shango does magic. Shango puts the fear in the hearts of people to uphold customs and traditions. So by you serving Shango, there are several different things that you could do, and you don't necessarily have to do them all, but by you showing up in one of those functions is how you serve Shango. So if you want to be a cardiologist, or or a hematologist or something, looking into the healthy the health and integrity of the blood, you're serving Shango. So if you're doing dance and you want to do dance therapy to, get people's blood moving and to make them healthy on the inside, you're doing Shango. If you're writing, let's say if you're writing literature about governance and maintaining traditional governance, you're doing Shango. If you want to help people by getting into shape, lifting weights, to be healthy, to support, good health, good cardio vascular functions, you're serving Shango. So there's several different ways that you can serve them, and it's not like you're predestined to do one thing. We don't believe in destiny per se, but we do feel like you have a pre-incarnated function, to bring into this world, and this is how you serve, that one deity, so to speak. So each deity has their own autonomy to act according to how the supreme male creative force and a supreme female creative force sanction that deity. So don't let anyone tell you that you must initiate into several deities that you're not related to. Don't let anyone tell you that deities are fighting over your head, because I don't believe in that. Don't let anybody tell you that your tutelary deity can change at the crack of a whip just like that. And don't let anyone tell you that you have to initiate into a particular deity for success, even if you're not related to that deity, or if it's not confirmed through divination. So my assumption, well, my route is that I never look for a diviner to confirm who I should initiate under. I wasn't in a rush, but I have these experiences to where I would see certain dreams. And I think you all have had similar experiences as well, to where a deity was leading you in your dreams, or you may be gravitated to a specific type of energy, or once you know your temperament and you know your essence, and then when you look at other deities, you would see, oh wow, well, I fall in line with this. And it was a lifelong process. So by the time I had my first I guess Yoruba divination, is that was the first deity that came out that confirmed it. But when I would go to the Vodun, Mambos, and Hugans, they would see, oh, okay, we see Dangbi, we see Obatala on you. I would go to the Asar Society, and they would, pull cards, or we see Asar, Asar had claimed you, and Akan, I was born on a specific day that confers that the spirit of Aswusi, and Ajwa, which is Obatala and Yemu, claimed my life. So it was a lifelong experience, and I didn't rush the process. I wasn't circling to hurry up and arrive, but I was just loving the process. So I would say that I would say that just to have time, be patient, go through the process, and just know that you serving that one deity is how you become the best you can. Because consider if the heart cell wanted to be a digestive enzyme, what if the digestive enzyme wanted to be a nerve cell? What if the nerve cell, what I'm saying, wanted to be bone marrow? Then you're like, hey, you're silly, like you can't operate like that because you weren't born from that. And it doesn't make you less of a person depending on what cell that you serve. So that's something very important that we must consider. So we'll go through and see how Obatala and Yamu were sanctioned to be the representation of the male and female creative force and to show humanities how to live. And we know that just as our family was forcibly migrated from West Africa to North America, and for all of y'all who are in the diaspora with us, your family may have a similar um, migration pattern. But we understand that not only were we forcibly migrated from West Africa to North America, is that we always keep in our mind and in our hearts and our intentions the migration of our family members from East Africa to West Africa. So not only would you hear us out of the sense of unity, so we do unify and use the religious practice of the Akan, the Ewe, the Fon, some Dogon, some Binkele, and some Dingas and some other things to kind of illustrate the point. We used the four main ones from West Africa because again, religion is a nature-based practice. So we tie in all of the similarities, but we still have respect for the individuality of the culture. So not only will we pull from these contemporary cultures when we're explaining the deities, but we also will keep up the history of our ancestors in Knesset, which is pre-colonial Sudan or Nubia, and Kemet. We understand that we had migrated from East Africa over to West due to the onslaught of war and invasions by the Asians and the whites, I guess the Syrians or Middle Eastern, so to speak. So not only by the language, by the ritual practice, but by the facial scars, you'll see that these are the same people that relocated and reestablished civilization in the Ghana Empire, and also throughout Yoruba land as well. And we do know that Ife and Oyo are not the original Ife and Oyo that are in existence now. So due to cataclysmic actions, also war, is that some of these civilizations and empires had to rebuild themselves once again. And also considering that a lot of our ancestors brought this culture with them, that in North America, the same Orisa practice is called juju. So juju is not like the Hollywood thing, and it's all about the malevolent aspect. But the term juju come from juju in Yoruba, and it also comes from juju in the Kamau language. It speaks about to say, to throw, to chant, to invoke. And of course, we all do this, but that ethnicity was known throughout enslavement. Like you can see with I think Markvisi, Gullah Jack, is that they were known for using incantations to make spells, amulets, and charms that made people bulletproof and use it to engage war to free ourselves from enslavement. And there's a whole lot of missing history about what happened in North America, and that the whites just liberated us from slavery, and that we were solely contingent upon them, but they completely miss over rebellions, effective rebellions, but also the power that religion, incantations, conjuring hadn't actually placed the fear of God into the slavers. And the same thing with hoodoo. Hoodoo is the traditional tradition in North America maintained since enslavement. We know voodoo, and voodoo came from Vodun, from the Ewe and the Fon, and actually this practice was preserved in North America before the Haitian migration to the South. So we have our own culture here. So when we're looking at the collective culture of Orisa Funfun, we understand that we had ancestors in East Africa who practiced as they were worshiping Asar and Aset. We know that they brought this over to the West Africa side, is how we are practicing Obatala Yamu, and how that still continues in North America, South America, Trinidad, Haiti, Tobago, Cuba, some parts of Virgin Islands, so forth and so on. So that is the gist of our culture, of what we seek to do here, and how we want to unify all of the practice, unify the Osha Funfun, and have a very clear understanding of who our deity is and how this deity operates today. So I'm gonna take a look, and we're gonna go through a poem that will kind of get the brain started about Obatala, and I think we'll probably stay on to about like 8:20, maybe 8:30. Let me know if that's too late for y'all. We can cut it like around 8:10. But if not, then we'll keep on going, and then the recording will also be posted. So hopefully it's not gonna be too late for y'all. So Oh, I see a question in the chat. Is that I appreciate this perspective. This also makes me think about something that I observed, but at the same time I didn't understand. I think I'm realizing that a person can be initiated into Obatala and practice Batala and practice and do work as an Obatala devotee, but not necessarily be a priest. Is that okay? Right. So I agree. And so the things what I would say is that um in the past, so of course, you know, the quote unquote temples or shrine house, they're called Ile, right? And even like the earth, it's called Onile. It's something that you know, the big place that you inhabit or something that you inhabit. The same thing in Kemet, they're called the temples a Het, and the Het literally means a house. So in the past, is that they would say it's in a good Akan priest in the diaspora told me this as well, and he's a really well respected man. And so what he was telling me is that I was overseeing a Esentaye ritual, and he said I want you to pay attention, and I want you to learn how to do this. And he said not necessarily as a priest, but I want you to know this as the man of the household, or the you know of the man of your children. So it was an idea that everybody should learn how to do certain rituals autonomously. So for an example, like if a child is sick, you know, a child has a cold or whatnot, you know, my wife would know like some remedies on how to cure some everyday things. But if things persist and get, you know, extremely worse, is that then you will go and see a specialist to help you. I think ritual is the same thing, is that you should be able to do things by yourself, like how to, you know, generally divine for yourself, how to perpetrate, you know, Obatala, how to feed them, how to, you know, use the water to purify, bring people to, so they can, you know, present their prayers to Obatala. But if something gets, you know, if it needs the work of a specialist, then this is when you will call someone. So that is what I would say, is that you can start with just your family, you can start with, you know, just your community, and then continue you know, continue to grow. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Some people could serve Obatala just propagating a spirit, and then some people are led to be a you know, to serve the community at large. So thank you for that question. That is good. I got another question. So you made a very important point about the different ways to serve Orisha, because everyone would not become a diviner. I'm understanding that the ministry of each Orisha goes beyond divination. Yes, and that is so true. Is that and it's cool. Like and it was this elder who had the same experience. Is that she got initiated late because somebody who was doing an Ifa initiation was a charlatan. They did not do it correctly. I think it was only about two people in the whole initiation, and that person had very bad character. So she was kind of devastated that, you know, that it wasn't done right. She's working the money up for it, and then she's like, I feel so old to where like I can't remember all of these poems. And so I was telling the person like, well, you know, that's just one way to serve, you know, Arumila. You know, you could help out with, you know, initiations, you can do the chants, you could consecrate the king. You know, you can help out with the songs, help out with the initiations, help with making medicines or talismans or whatnot. Like there's so many, or SNTIAs, funerals, marriages. Um, you know, there's so many different ways to help out your deity. You could even start consecrating just the beads. Like if you want to, you know, consecrate the days for Oromila, that's something that you can do. So I would say with you all, go to what you feel more gravitated to. Some people are just herbalists. You know, they can memorize plants like nothing and put it together. So there's no one way to serve. There's many things that people have a interest into. So like myself, I enjoy the incantations, the liturgy. I enjoy like the psychicism, the medium, so like the spirit possession, the mediumship. In addition to, you know, the poems. I may not like memorizing them so much, but still it's something that you know, I'm gravitated to do. But you brought up a really good point, is that I think that most of the times people think that a diviner is the only thing, or that divination is the whole world of priesthood. And that's not true. It is an important part of it, but that's not the only part of being Olorisha. There's so much more that we can do. So thank you for bringing up that point. Yeah, that's a really good point. So throughout this, we'll do a couple of things. I think we'll go through all of the material first, and then towards the end, we'll go over some poems, some divination poems, and it'll probably be twofold. So we'll go through the poems that explicitly mention Obatala, and then we can add on, some poems if those want to learn, the Lagoon poems, or in the chance we can do that. But it's important to take a look at this breakdown so that we know how to understand the mysteries of the 16 Kyrie poems. So of course, there's many different forms of divination. There's Omiwiwo, which is water reading, which we used to do. There's some Ogun or some hunters, they divine with 4 cola nuts. There's the cola nut Obiobata with just the 4 lobes. There's the 16 Kyries. There's a 250-65. So there's different ways that of course, in spirit possession, that's the initial or the very first form of divining, to where that human becomes the divinatory instrument. So there's many different ways to divine. So here is the Obatala founded and trained Arshun in 16 Kari divination. And so maybe at a later date, before we start to go through the poems, I'll do more in depth of the theory and the history behind it. So with each poem, they have 8 parts into these poems. So with these 8 parts, you're going to learn it should be indicated the name of the diviner, the name of the supplicant, the reason why the supplicant is receiving divination, the prescribed remedy, the choice, the decision of the client, the result of the divination or the ebo, the outcome of the priest, the reaction of the priest due to the outcome, and the conclusion. So, like for an example, your diviners are named after a nickname. So if someone's nickname is for an example, someone has the nickname, the akoko, the akoko leaf, and the akoko leaf that sprouts, the akoko leaf that leans over to the side. So an akoko leaf is a very strong, powerful leaf that's used for a lot of title transfers, and when people receive ranks. So they have these big leaves on the side of your head. So if you know that the diviner is an akoko leaf, it's giving you a coded message on what to tell the person. So this person may be, a leafy or earthy like kind of person. This person can be kind of fragile, but very strong and powerful. So it's giving you clues on what advice would you give to the person and what's going on with the message of that story. So when we're speaking about, Obatala, we're going to go over this poem. I think we'll go through the poem, and then we'll go over the brief history of them at the next class. I'm just checking on the time here. So in the 16 Kyries, when you have all of the Kyries facing down but one is Akaran. And when you divine, there's 16 Odus that show in 16 Kyries. And of those 16 Odus, there can be over 800 or 900 different poems, they say. But in the original times, people said there was almost an infinite amount of number or several different poems, but we don't know how many has been preserved. So we'll do the best that we can of preserving what we found. So this story, it kind of covers the essence of Obatala, and this is from Okara. And it goes as follows: Okara Kaogun, Okara Kaoban, Eyiti Okaoban, Nikagun, Dafun, Oshala Osheremongbo, Tiologbe ile ni ronje, Oni Erubo, Nibi ni Airuki Bayenia, Ko Ipe, Ko Ijina, Erimi ni Dejubutu Omo, Nibi ti Osha Wipe, Fori Omo Fun, Nibi ti Agberi Agbakanso Show, Bosha, Tiwinu. So the story goes, well, the translation goes, Okaran touches 20, Okaran touches 30. That which touches 30 also touches 20. If divination was performed for Oshala Sherimongbo when he was going to take land or literally soil at Iranje, offering sacrifices is what supports one. Not offering anything doesn't help anyone. It won't be long. It won't be far away. You will see me in an abundance of children. This is where Obatala says he predicts the blessings of children, where we see one elder as Obatala had spoken. So in this story of Okaran, it is it's a literal account of Oshala or Serimongbo. And here Oshala was going to take land, Ile, literally land or soil at Iran J. So he wanted to inhabit this place in Iran J. So before doing so, Oshala or Serimongbo decided to seek divination to see how he would be successful. So the diviner's name was Okaran touches 20. The other one was named Okaran touches 30. And the third diviner was named that was touches 30, also touches 20. So traditionally, when you would go and, for a traditional divination, it would not just be one person. It's usually a community of priests in that cult who's going to divine for you. Some can help out with the poems. Some can give you an interpretation. Some, maybe just know a poem or so, and they will contribute to the collective process. So Obatala, Oshala, Oseti Mongbo went and those three were divining for him. And so they said for Oshala to sacrifice 22,000 kairis, a white cloth, 11 large African snails, the ikbin, and a chicken. So when Oshala gathered all of the materials that were needed to perform that ebo, that sacrifice, and presented it. And at this time in Iran J, no one was worshiping, no one was being worshipped at that time. So it was Obatala who slowly all the people started serving. Oshala Serimongbo was alone, and he was the only person that people were worshiping in that city due to his sacrifice. So, as we stated before, that Orishanla or Orishanla, Oshala is a contraction of Orishanla, and then Orishanla is from Orisha, and Orisha is Obatala's original name. So when you hear Oshala or Osha, as they say a lot in Oyo, when they just say Osha, they're talking about Obatala. When you see a poem in Eredelegun or Ifa, when they say Orisha, like in Akaran, like no, what's it? Akaran Meji? It was one in Ifa where they say Ere lesson or Orisha was like, blessings are the only thing that comes from worshiping Orisha that you think, but it really means Obatala. So if they don't say Awon Orisha, which means, the group or the multiple Orisha, and they just say Orisha, they're specifically talking about Obatala. So that was his name, and we already discussed how that means the big or the most principal Orisha. So we'll see in time is that there's been a lot of misinformation about Obatala. I assume to lessen his power, that they kind of transform him to a Christian-like deity or this feeble, drunk old man, or this feeble-minded old man, or the famed drunk rather. And then there's also been some people who I really respected, but they would say that Obatala, and this is in the I think the Trinidad perspective, where they would say Obatala is he's a white man, and the white means he has white skin, and he's Jesus Christ, and all of this other stuff that is just straight up false, not true. Because we actually seen him through possession to what he looks like, but we know a lot of that stuff is just is a hybridization, and a lot of things are just plagiarized. So it's not necessarily true. So when we think about individuals and praise names and nicknames, is that these praise names and nicknames invoke a special energy out of an entity, and then it's bringing up something that they're known for doing. So a lot of folks would say, and this is the same with the name of the diviners, as we mentioned here, is that the name of the diviners are going to be known for something that they have been doing, like without fail. So some folks would say that the term Oshere Mongbo doesn't have a literal translation, but rather some things philosophically translate to certain types of a certain essence of something. But I do think that it does. But nonetheless, when we saying Oshere Mongbo, is that I see the couple of words, Oshe and Egbo from Egbon. is that Oshe means weak, and Egbo, or it comes from Egbon, which means the eldest or the senior or the oldest relative. So this exact same translation was in that book, Obatala, the greatest and oldest divinity by Olayinka Adewuyi. And the term means the oldest or older, um, the eldest one from the older week or the older days or something like that. So if you put it all together, is that to me that this term means Orisha, Oshala Oshedemongbo means the principal or senior deity from the oldest days. So Obatala has several different praise names. But this is actually speaking about this entity or deity like from the old times. Like he's a very old ancient deity. And when we hear the praise names, Oshala, Oshedemongbo, it's describing something that had happened a long time ago. So this right here, the founding of Iran J, is something that had happened in the early points of life. And then this is when he's descending from the spirit world and coming into the material world. And this is a very important concept. So in a lot of Obatala songs, they would say, Obatala, did you wake up? Did you wake up yet? They'll start praising like, Olokun is the head of the water. The blue Tarako bird woke up with his blue dye. This bird woke up with this crown on his head. Obatala, did you wake up? Did you wake up? So it keeps stressing this sentence of waking up. And I think it's also a play on words from how we can go through life with negative assumptions or no assumptions and no expectation, not knowing that our thoughts are creating our reality. So it's saying, wake up, wake up. Just like, in the Matrix or the story with Ra, when Ra was, procrastinating, depressed, and he was creating a whole bunch of things because he did not arrive yet. So I think it's definitely an esoteric play on words on how we can go through life, not being aware or conscious that every single thought of every single moment that we're creating, so we're not awake. That's what saying, wake up, pay attention. But it also means with Obatala, did you wake up? Did you descend from the spirit world and come into the material world? And so I say this because there is a big misconception on the name of Obatala. And I think that, again, this is my interpretation. It is what it is. But something just didn't sit right with me is how the name is translated. And so I only saw one other author who made the same I guess had the same result as me. And this is Olumide Lucas in his book The Religions of the Yoruba. And he was able to show the consistency on how the Yoruba migrated from Sudan, Knesset, Nubia, which of course Kemet was a colony of Knesset, and how they do the same thing in Nigeria. For an example, you'll see with the old kings and queens of Nubia, how they had the 3 scars on their face. That's the same 3 scars that the Oyo monarchs or the Oyo people wear on their face, and that's just one example. So of course Oba means king, but in for an example, different languages like in Chui and the Metutu, they do have pronouns that shows you male and female of every term. But in Yoruba, the language isn't constructed like that. So Oba, some people say king, but there was no gender predisposition, so we'll just call it like the monarch, or I would say the authority. Tioni means to have. There are allusions, right, to that comes from Tioni to Tioni to ta. So Tioni means to have, to hone, to possess, and so Allah is the controversial term, so to speak, and we know that Yoruba is a tonal language. So when you have Allah, like dodo, Allah, that does mean white and undyed, and that's true. So when I seen Obatala through possession, it was it was weird because it was on an old like animated scroll to attest that it is an old ancient deity, but then it was a very muscular, like in shape man. Like it wasn't like an old feeble man or like an elder I guess like a elder that wasn't physically in shape, but the person was old. They were in shape, very powerful, very fearsome, and it was wearing a white cloth. So it's communicating some of the essence of that spirit. So yes, we do know where Obatala possesses white. But again, if that was so, the name would not be Obatala, it will be Obatala, right? And that's not the term. So the deity, as we know, possesses white and possesses white light. Hence his name, Obatala ala Funfun, the possessor of the white cloth. But that is not his name, right? So his name is not Obatala. So when we know that when the illusions occur in Yoruba grammar, is that when you're putting a couple of different words together, the new term will take on a high tone. So whatever it is, this one has got to take this A has got to take the high tone. But we know that it's not Obatala, and the only other term is Obatala, right? Where the A is the high tone. So with that, you have Allah, which means dreams or visions. So Olumide and then Olayinka, they also state that Obatala means the deity of dreams or the deity of hope, as if it's like an inspirational type of proclamation. But what I also feel that is incorrect for that assumption. So in the Akan Eben, what means Proverbs, and it says, if you want to know what death is like, then simply go to sleep. So what they're saying is that the place that you go to when you sleep is the place that you go to after death, but then we will reside there permanently until we reincarnate in the spirit world, or when we'll engage in ritual and we'll temporarily descend from the spirit world to the material world to interact with our ancestors. So this is the difficulty with translating things from an African language to an English language, because English doesn't necessarily captures like that expression as other African languages does. So we know that the dream realm is the spirit realm. So if we know dreams, the spirit world is where we engage to when we dream or when we have a vision. Thus, the name of Obatala would not necessarily mean the authority that possesses the white cloth, but it means the authority of the spirit world. And that is my my um my conclusion that I will not bend from. This same title, the same invocation has been said by for hundreds of thousands of years as deities that possess the same energy. We know that through the Obatala Pipe, it will consistently speak of him being the owner of the big earth, or the owner of the big place, which means the spirit world. We know that Obatala's body makes up one whole layer of the spirit world. We know that through the poems, he's called the Alagbere Arun, what means the creator in the spirit world, or the Mori Mori Team Mori Omal Tun Tun, the one that creates the babies in the spirit world, the one that drops and descends down from the spirit world, because this is where Obatala resides. So I know with a lot of other Orisha, and this is why Obatala really represents faith and hope to me. So if you want to see Shango, when you see lightning in the sky, you see Shango. When you want to see Olokun, you go to the ocean and you see Olokun. But where do you see Obatala at, right? We know that if Obatala created the earth and Obatala created people, sometimes when we are having issues with faith, we're looking like, okay, where is Obatala, right? So his spirit is everywhere, but it's hidden in the other realm of reality. And we know that the spirit world actually mandates what happens in the material world. So if you ever want to change something, don't start stressing, because stressing is not going to do anything. But what you do is you go to ritual, you invoke change in the ritual so that it can come and take effect in the material world. So this is the deity that is the authority of the spirit world. The same deity Asar is called Kinti Amenti, which means of highest or the foremost ranked in the spirit world. So it's the same praise name. So this is this is the same name. And then this is the consistent praise name that we're saying to this ancient deity. And through ritual, Obatala starts to purify like this death process. Obatala, it's the same thing when Asar was killed. He was reborn and he came back and he purified the negative aspect of death so that people can communicate in ritual. 1 second. Okay. So we're almost close on the end, but the last thing that I would end with is that as they stated that Obatala was finding Iran J, is that Iran J is the home of Obatala, and this is where his shrine is actually, is located, and there's he was in Iran J Ife, and then Ile Iran J, and then Iran J Oko, and this is where he resides at today. So Obatala, of course, as we know, is married with Olokun. I'm sorry, is married to Yamu. He's had 200 plus one wives, but Yamu is his principal or his main wife, and she assists in the creation process. And it is the actions of Obatala and Yamu that are able to bring things in and out of the spirit world. So they oversee the ritual aspect of creation. So there are different let's see, there's different lineages that are in Iran J. We already discussed the Obale Sun is the paramount leader or the chief priest of Obatala. As you see here during the procession, there have the Efun or the white clay that's on their body, and that they're supposed to look as like the leopards. So in the old days in Kemet, when they would wear the leopard skin over their chest for the high-ranking priests, and in some Central or South African traditions, they still keep up with that same ancient tradition today, and that is that fearsome or strong spiritual sign. So this is a image of the annual procession in Iran J that's held during the Obatala World Temple. Excuse me. And then Idita is the term that encompasses the entire lineage of the descendants of the Orisa. And Oranje is a town to where Obatala was head, and his blood descendants still remain. So that is when we will find Obatala. The one story that I'll say before we go is, and we'll go over it more in depthly, is a story in on Ogbefun. So with this story, it shows you on how Obatala why he started wearing white. So there was a war that he was engaged in, and of course this directly contrasts to what people say, that is the Obatala is the deity of peace, and I don't necessarily like that, because when we say that, it's an assumption that Obatala is a pacifist, or we turn Obatala into a Western like entity, almost like a Jesus like entity, which isn't true. Take it down here, bud. Which isn't true. So with Obatala is that he is more so for justice than pacifism. So it was a story to where he was engaged in war, and that he went to go seek divination, and they said for you to be successful that you have to give up that black war garment that you use for war. And so this black war garment, you've seen what some Ogun priests have, or some Ogun, priests and practitioners have. It has a bunch of magic talismans and charms, and is made to keep someone bulletproof. And so he thought to himself, like, why in the world will I give this up if I'm about to go to war? Why would I give up this war vest? So he neglected to do so. He didn't listen to the advice of the diviners. And before Obatala left the house, is that all of the people who he was supposed to go to war with died. And so from there on, he swore to never wear any other color but white. So but remember, like I said earlier, to where we may when we are looking at other African traditions, and we're not throwing everything together, but we're looking at the similarities, and then we're practicing in a culturally consistent way. So for an example, with the Akan, this deity is worshipped as Aswusi, and Aswusi, one of his colors is black. So Obatala and Awusi is the same thing, but it's from the black soil, it's from the blackness of space, which represents eldership and I guess wisdom and so forth. So now they could wear black, no problem, but in our culture we see this deity as something different, and we can't wear black at all. But they still say they still keep up with the same ritual practice, to where when they get possessed, I believe they call it the Hibri, I think, in Akan, where they put the white clay on them because their body became a purified place of residency that the Abosom would take down and possess the person. And we do the same thing, right? So we wear white, and when we want to call on the spirit or when we're possessed, we'll put on, the white Efun, or during rituals, initiations and so forth. So it's kind of the same thing, but we're a little bit different. So this is why Obatala must wear white. There's something very esoteric about white. If you listen to people who have near-death experiences, they will tell you a very similar occurrence. And actually, I was just overhearing something that my wife was playing the other day, is that occurrence is a 100% consistent to where people say that, they feel this presence of peace, they feel this presence of joy, they feel this presence of almost like almost like a sexual satisfaction, this very high vibrational state. And like I learned from this Vodun priest how he said that when he was eating this fruit, and usually this fruit is very sour, but right when it was about to, beyond the part of it being ripe, and when it was about to spoil, it tasted really sweet. And he said, because the ancestors say, death is like an orgasm or something like that, because the dying fruit tastes the sweetest. So not only is it, and I'm not promoting like, I guess sexual promiscuity, but what I'm saying is that this feeling of elation, of peace, of joy, of calm, seeing the white staircase, the people dressed in white, going to the white light, seeing your whole life flash before your eyes, you being judged by someone as they're calling up all of your events. All of these start to slowly bring into clarity, like what the white is, who is this individual dressed in white at this place in the spirit world, and then what is the importance that it has ritually. So it's not just, as scientists will say, neurons or synapses dying in the brain and it's creating some type of hallucination. That's not true. And again, we're divorcing ourselves from Western science, but we do know that there's someone on the other side that's possessing a whole realm in white, that has the authority in that place that someone is recently entering. So let me get to the questions real quick. Before I get to the questions, I'll go to you. Yes, yeah, Okunfamika, you have your hand up?
Yes. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In relation to what you're saying about peace, and I guess not really agreeing with the notion of peace in relation to Obatala, I think it's the perfect term. And it has nothing to do with pacifism or, like being a pushover or anything. But if we are associating peace with tranquility and that white light that you mentioned, it makes absolute perfect sense what they're meaning by, the Orisa of peace.
Right.
Because you think of tranquility, and even in, the circumstances of death, when people say, oh, this white light, or they feel this really tranquil spirit or energy coming over them, which, makes them feel comfortable with letting go, and, so on and so forth. And Obatala's relationship with creation, birth, and death. I think that peace, or that white light, is really emphasizing the state of calmness or tranquility, and in essence, purity, I guess.
Right. No, 100% correct. And thank you for clarifying that. And yes, I guess what I was attempting to say is, like, I guess the idea of like avoiding conflict, like the Western influence, how, you turn the other cheek and stuff like that. Like, we don't have that in our culture, but the wanting and yearning for that type of harmony and peace and balance. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Like, that's who the entity is, on how they say, the one with the Seseefun has the clean laugh, or Obatala, I need why I need like the one who has good ethical character, but the one that has, a good amount of E-ray or blessing. So you're absolutely right. It's like having that peace, that tranquility, that calm, that very like cool kind of energy. But when it's time to, come with the thunder in life,
but even when, I'm sorry, even when he is to go to war, that made me think also, like when you brought up the story of him with the black clothing that he would wear. I'm thinking, and it made me think about also the story, of course, when he was with the Amu going through the town, and all those people kept dirtying up his white cloth. But she was reminding him to not lose his top, like in every instance, she was like, remember what they said to you, like, stay cool, stay calm, don't argue with anybody, don't, conflict. I think it's putting emphasis on the way Obatala should engage in conflict. And it's in a very, it shouldn't be, rah, 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 or, losing his stuff. But it's a very
I would say regal, but yeah.
Yeah, regal, but it's another word I want to use. It's way too early in the morning for me. A very collected way, a very strategic way that he should go to war. But it's, not like that of Ogun, shall I say,
Right.
Not saying that, he, of course, emphasizing he's not a pushover, but there's a way that he goes to war that allows him to remain collected and pure, even in, battle, engaged in conflict.
Right. Exactly right. And then and there's a lot of praise poetry as well that would say that, as they're talking about the positive aspects of Obatala, but they would say, the war-faring one, or the one that will go in the water with batons ready to fight, or the one that that dragged his enemies. And so he has this aspect of a warrior. But once you think about his essence and think about like reality, and I think the story of when he was under the name Oshala or Sedemongbo is a perfect example, because it shows you also, and not only Obatala people have this vibration, but I'm sure everybody else will have this scenario to where you're like the first one to do something. Like you're the first one that's dropping in somewhere. So imagine if you just descended into the middle of the forest. Like, we're not going to walk around, we're going to be, I would say that you'll be the one to kind of lead the way, to knock down the path. You'll be the first one to institute something. So if he's the first one that's descending, there has to be that warrior aspect, or that aspect for survival. But there's ethical and moral and, high esteem ways that you go about it. So it's a very difficult dance to have. And so, of course, we should all be keeping ourselves, try to stay health conscious and try to, work out, or at least, keep health good, and just know that there will be some times to where, we're going to have to take the lead on some stuff. And there's not necessarily like the savior, the messianic kind of theory that someone is going to come down and do something for us. You may be the person to do it, but it's all on how you go about it. So it's definitely a difficult dance to have. So thank you for that point. It's some really, really good stuff that you mentioned. I'm gonna go through these questions real quick. So one thing that I have noticed here in the States, when there are festivals and songs that are sung to the Orisha, Obatala is not included. I have seen that as well. So I know a lot, some may have like the Trinidad or Tobagan denomination, but I've been to a couple of festivals where Obatala isn't mentioned at all, or or they only know one song of him. And I get it if they may not know it, but it does seem like he's not as well represented for some strange reason, even though that he is the arch divinity, the senior divinity of all of the other Orisha. And I'm not sure why. Yep, Olokun represents the subconscious, yes, in the depths of the mind and the spirit. Right, she's a whole lot more deeper than what folks would chat about. And again, not only will we do Orisa Funfun like thoroughly, but remember, as I said, in order to understand the deity, you got to know the parents, the grandparents, and the great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. And Olokun will be one of those elder deities, older than Obatala, and we'll go through her as well, and then the general Orisha, so that even if we have people outside of Orisa Funfun, you can still learn. But then just to know the other Orishas as well, it's pertinent to have. So Yemu does have her own priesthood. So some people say Yemu is only in Ife. I don't necessarily think that's true. I know that there's some people in Oyo who are Yemu priests and priestess as well. And Yemu is a strong deity. And so if you read like the book of the Duat, where they talk about Aset and how of course Aset is worshipped as Yemu, and she has straight fearsome power. She is the one that is the patron deity of Ajay, of the patron deity, and not of money, of the psychic force, the patron deity of what they call sorcery or incantations, magic. They called it witchcraft, but I really would use the word ritual. She's the deity that oversees ritual. So she's the one that is bringing everything from the spirit world to the material world. And Obatala is bringing things, vice versa, from the spirit world to the material, from the material world to the spirit world, but they share the same function. So both of them can do both, but she's the main one that's pulling things out of the spirit world. And she's a very, very, very strong Orisha, and a very strong deity. And I don't find it, I don't think it's a coincidence by them saying that, oh, her shrine was destroyed, or when they say that they create a character named Oduduwa and make Oduduwa a man who was a foreign invader, and say that, oh, Oduduwa is the father of all the Yoruba, when this woman named Yemu was called by the same praise name, Oduduwa, and called her the mother of all the Yoruba. I think they were really trying to destroy our culture by removing key deities out of the practice. They removed, Agberu, they removed Yemu, and they're attempting to destroy our culture to keep us from ritually functioning. But yeah, Yemu is a very strong deity. That's my mother. So just as Obatala is my father, Yemu is my mother. She was with me strong throughout life, and she really helps me out with the mediumship, clairvoyance, IJ, and all of that other good stuff. Yeah, the book is called the book of the two acts, or they call it duats. I'm sorry, duat. Also call it the Book of Caverns. Book of Caverns is another occurrence, but that story tells you like the senior rank of Obatala. Ra, of course, is Aledamare, and it shows you on how Obatala and Aledamare work together. They take on the same energy, but his high ranking that he has, and a lot of this is missing from the culture. And again, I give my respect, right? I'm not disrespecting any Orisha practice, but I think sometimes the traditional practice of Ifa is just destroying any other culture, and that's not necessarily accurate. So a lot of times Eshu would be attempted to be placed above Obatala. We've seen this in the past play out as well, where Set murdered Asar and went into rule in place of Asar. We've seen the same thing in Ifa poems, to where Eshu went into rule in place of Obatala. But we know that his rank will forever be unchanged. So some of the things that exist to this day. So yes, Yemu Wo and Yemu is a variation of the term. I'm still trying to find out the proper etymology of what Yemu is. But we do know it's called Yemu Obaniba, which means Yemu, come hide under the power of the vagina. And so in all African cultures, like with Minona, her symbol is the vagina. Aset, she oversees the vagina. Asar oversees the penis structure as well. Also, when you look at the penis or organs, the testes, and the penis itself, the inline looks exactly like an elephant. Obatala, possesses the elephant. So these deities oversee the reproductive areas as well. And so it's a tie to where there's certain type of feminine energy, there's certain type of psychical energy is governed by Yemu. So I don't know what Yemu means, but it's consistent with Minona, Ajua, Aset, that she is a spirit that governs the female reproductive system, is the protector of those who do rituals, the protector of women, the protector of childbirth. And she has the highest rank. She was sanctioned as a highest ranking female Orisha, just as Obatala was sanctioned as a highest ranking male Obatala Orisha. All right. I'm almost done here. Oh my goodness. Uh-huh. Why is that so dangerous? Yeah. And so and this is a step to reclaim that. And so with everything that we're doing here, of course, it's going into a book. once it's done, we're going through the revision process. I'll give that to you guys once we finish. But that was the attempt, is that it's a war on everything sacred, a war on everything that's pure, and they're presenting things that are not true. They're agents that are infiltrating the religion, trying to persuade people to do things that aren't true, lead people in the wrong direction, and they're removing key parts of our culture to where it almost mirrors, a Western religion. And I'm not a zealot, or I'm not for xenophobic, so to speak. Everybody can do their own stuff, but a lion is a lion, a dog is a dog, a cat is a cat, cheetah is a cheetah, python is a python, cobra is a cobra. They can do their stuff, but I don't like when they're bringing other foreign religions into our culture, making it a hybridized practice where non-African religion is attempting to influence African religion and is destroying the fabric of what our culture is. So yeah, we really have to learn our own culture from our own ancestors and put it together and preserve it. So hopefully that was beneficial to you. So I believe I emailed everyone. Some if you haven't responded to the email, at first, it may had went into the spam folder. So please shoot me an email at ishola@Seseefun. Or I know some people I chatted with you off of Instagram or Facebook or whatever. You can respond to me there. I know some of you may have already sent it, but please just send me your email once again so I know the names of the person that is going to. I'm going to send you a link to our site here. So all of our recordings will be posted on the site. So some of these things are posted on the YouTube site, but moving forward, since I'm going to gift this cohort with the new classes, with free classes to let me see, with the free classes to this upcoming class. So I'll send this all to you. Sorry if I can get this stuff out of the way. Sorry. All right. So I'll send this all to you. We've just now finished the major part of the website here. And so here you'll find a little bit of background of what we all do at Seseefun, and any ways to kind of unify us teens, kids, adults as well. So me and my wife do a program for children that we're jumping right back on, but you'll see here many different types of devotions, many other Orisa classes. And so you will find some things that will be beneficial, and also with the library that we just now created. And you'll find, I believe, over like 500 scholarly journals that are on here. Some things from science, religion, African American or African culture in the diaspora, or slave narratives, herbology, traditional medicine, biology, the truth, and I would say other things to consider that I think it's key to our practice here. You definitely have access to that. And so again, my gift to you all for starting off with us from the very beginning. So your credentials will get you into here. There's also a social media aspect that is on this site. So if you all want to have questions, if you guys have questions through between class, if you want to engage with your classmates, you can do so. And if there's a topic that you guys want to have, let me know. I believe Iya Efuntola, she had a question about, I think, of unity, or the one within several. So if you all have any topics to where you just want to chat about or talk about, we can most definitely do that here. Sky's the limit, and we'll be good. So thank you all for joining class this morning. It was great. I'll see you all next Sunday. Again, shoot me your email and I'll give you access to the site. And if you have any questions, you can email me. Ariel Odabo.
Oh.